Hello everyone, and welcome to today's discussion of AdAlta's progress towards building our clinical stage pipeline. AdAlta is built on our iBody drug discovery platform. This is a unique drug discovery tool that enables us to go where traditional antibody drugs cannot, to produce high-value, next-generation protein and cell therapies for debilitating diseases. You can think about AdAlta's business in two parts. The first part is our discovery business that really leverages that iBody platform technology to create lead drug candidates through early stages of discovery and preclinical or animal study development. This alone creates valuable assets that pharma companies are willing to acquire, license, or co-develop from us. But the real value comes when we're able to advance those programs into what we call product development, or our product development businesses, where we're taking these assets into clinical trials. And today we have two distinct business units as part of that product development business. The first is AdSolus, which focuses on fibrosis and inflammation and is advancing our most advanced program, AD214, into phase 2 clinical trials for debilitating fibrotic diseases such as idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. The second business unit we've created is AdCella, focusing on cellular immunotherapies. These are using human cells as living drugs to address and fight cancer and other debilitating diseases. Through both of these business units, we're aiming to add an increased portfolio and pipeline of clinical stage assets that will drive more near-term value creation for AdAlta shareholders. We succeed when either our iBody platform or our product development businesses produce assets that larger biopharmaceutical companies are willing to out-license or co-develop for future later stage clinical development and commercialization. At that point, AdAlta will generally earn upfront payments and downstream development milestones and royalties on ultimate commercial success. So let's talk about AdSolus and what it is doing. AdSolus is developing AD214 as a totally new approach to fibrotic disease, providing new hope to fibrotic disease patients. We're inspired by people like Bill Van Nierop. Bill is one of the very, very rare survivors of a debilitating lung disease called idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, or IPF. Bill describes having IPF as being really not knowing where your next breath is going to come from. This is not like being puffed when you're climbing the stairs. This is almost like drowning, and it's happening every day. Unfortunately, there's no good treatment for IPF today. There are 500,000 patients around the world living with IPF, and essentially they face a death sentence. There's very, very few like Bill who are able to access a double lung transplant and survive. For the remainder, with the absence of great therapies, there is really a desperate need for an alternative outcome, a new hope. And AD214, we believe, could provide that new hope for these desperately in need patients. We've invested more than 45 million Australian dollars to date in developing AD214. It is a first-in-class molecule targeting an established mode of action in fibrotic disease. As first-in-class, this means it occupies a unique competitive position in the drug arsenal. It has preclinical efficacy demonstrated in multiple animal models of fibrotic disease, and this de-risks our clinical studies. One disease model alone would be highly risky. Having demonstrated efficacy in multiple animal models gives us increased confidence in the ability of this molecule to be effective. Our clinical studies will be led by idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, which is a $4.3 billion market today, but there are multiple billion-dollar market indication extension opportunities, particularly in kidney fibrosis and potentially also eye fibrosis and cancer. We've successfully completed a phase 1 clinical trial of AD214. It was well tolerated with clear evidence of target binding, which again sets us up perfectly to be heading into phase 2 clinical trials. Those phase 1 trials were also able to demonstrate that the likely dosing regime that will be successful in phase 2 is consistent with what our market research tells us is going to be a clinically viable regimen that patients will actually be able to adhere to. That will be an intravenous dose every 2 weeks, for which they will come into the clinic, but we've also identified the opportunity to develop an enhanced subcutaneous version of the drug that would be administered every week by the patient at home. We have a strong intellectual property portfolio position, providing market exclusivity and protection well beyond 2036. From here, AdSolus is currently seeking third-party strategic and financial investors to assist us to finance the phase 2 program in intravenous AD214. We'll also be progressing the development of the subcutaneous formulation, taking that through phase 1. At the completion of that program of work, we'll be seeking to out-license AD214, providing a choice of formulations that our partners can then take into phase 3 clinical studies. The reason we're doing this is the value that is realised from successful commercialisation and licensing of assets in the field of fibrosis. This table shows recent transactions in the field of idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, our lead indication, showing that assets transact routinely for upfront payments of US $40 million and higher, with milestone payments contingent on development success, of course, in excess of $1 billion. That compares with our market capitalisation today of just around about 15 million Australian dollars. So we think there is significant value upside in successfully executing A, the financing of phase 2, and B, the out-licensing of the drug either before phase 2 or at the end of phase 2. Let me turn now to AdCella, which is the vehicle we're using to develop our east to west cellular immunotherapy strategy. Unlike AdSolus, which focused on a totally internally developed drug, AdCella is focused on bringing in licensing assets that are already ready for the clinic and then subsequently enhancing the next generation of those products with the iBody technology. This helps us build a much faster clinical pipeline, which is critical to realising value in the Australian markets today. So what are we talking about? Cellular immunotherapies are living drugs. They involve re-engineering a patient's own immune cells to go and see and fight cancer, and they've transformed cancer outcomes in blood cancers in particular in recent years. The challenge is that we need new multifunctional therapies to address solid cancers, and this is where we see a distinct opportunity for AdAlta. AdCella is positioned at the heart of an ecosystem that we think gives it amazing competitive advantages. We have a world-class advanced therapies clinical trial and translational research ecosystem in Australia. We are close to the hub of product innovation and clinical in China and the rest of Asia, where 50% of the world's innovation in this field is happening today, and where clinical validation can be achieved even before we in-license assets. We can achieve clinical trials in Australia at 25 to 50% lower cost than is done in the US, and we have our R&D tax incentive that further evaluates that. AdCella brings together AdAlta's iBody technology to further enhance that China and Asia innovation, coupled with our collaboration with Cell Therapies, Australia's leading manufacturer of cell and gene therapies, and Synthesis, our joint venture partner in AdCella, which brings us private capital and deep China expertise. Our business model involves licensing assets from Asia into Australia and establishing a Western regulated manufacturing framework, conducting a first clinical trial under a Western regulated environment, and then exporting that through out-licensing agreements and manufacturing networks to the rest of the world. And we believe that exercise of establishing a Western regulated clinical trial data and manufacturing network will add significant value to these assets. We know that cell and gene therapies attract deal values, at least upfront payments, that are 3 times those of a traditional biologic, and these can be recognised at a much earlier stage than can some traditional therapeutics. So then how are we unlocking the value of our pipeline? The key is, as I've mentioned, developing a clinical stage pipeline of assets, because this is where value is realised in the largest quantum and most rapid time. AdSolus is developing our lead asset, AD214, heading into phase 2 clinical trials in a $4.3 billion market. And we are preparing that partnering and financing strategy right now with transactions anticipated or being worked towards in the very near term. AdCella also has transaction-driven opportunities. Our east to west cellular immunotherapy strategy is currently diligencing around 10 different assets for potential in licensing. This provides a high growth and rapid progress through a clinical milestone. We have an experienced team and network capable of delivering these programs. We've already delivered clinical trials for 8214. I've mentioned our collaborations with Synthesis and Cell Therapies to deliver AdAlta as well. We have a strong and supportive institutional and large shareholder register. We've just raised another $3.9 million in the past 2 months. We have a really attractive valuation relative to the commercial potential of our pipeline. We think this is a wonderful opportunity for people to be, and time for people to be looking at AdAlta today. We'd be delighted to hear more from you. Please follow up with us at your convenience with any questions you may have.